Okay, so I think, well, I'm hoping that we're live. So let's start off. So I'm Mike Safe, and welcome everybody to this Facebook Live discussion. What I thought I'd do with World Class Coaching was, while everybody is stuck at home and quarantined or whatever situation they're in, is to try and help out by having some interesting debates and discussions on all kinds of topics. And making them free to everybody. So here we are on Facebook Live. If you missed this, we're going to post it on YouTube, and we'll post it on our members area as well. So today, I'm really looking forward to this debate today, because I've got a big interest in it. And I've got Stephen Constantine here and Rob Gale. And we're going to talk a little bit about, well, we're going to kind of debate possession versus a more direct style approach. And we'll kind of go into the nuances of that, because I think all three of us agree possession is good and we like our teams to pass the ball around. But I think there may be a case now where that may be getting a little bit overdone because of the success that Guardiola's had with Barcelona and now with Manchester City. So we'll get into all that. So let's just start off with the introduction. So let's go to Steve first. And Steve, if you can just give a brief details about your background, so that people know where you're from, etc.
Okay. Well, I was born in England, raised in England. Had some spells playing in the US as a kid. Went into coaching when I was about 28 years old. In fact, my first stint was CW Post in New York. I was assistant coach there in the college. Did my USSF licenses. Then there wasn't much happening in the US at that time. So this is back in the 80s. So I went back to the UK, did all my badges. I got my pro license in 2003, 2004 in the third group. And clubs, I've coached several clubs in Cyprus and Greece. First team coach at Millwall in England in the Championship. And in between that and before and after, I've coached 6 national teams. And I'm a FIFA instructor.
Okay, and the national team, what national teams have you coached? You've got India is one of them.
India's okay. So it went Nepal, India, Malawi, Sudan, Rwanda, and back to India.
Okay. Oh yeah, my dad coached the Malawi team. Was that right after you or right before you?
Your dad?
Yeah, Mick Hennigan.
What a lovely guy! Was that your dad? I met him.
Yeah.
Top lovely man. I don't
Was he
know
before you or after you?
No, I met him in England actually, in Blackpool, I think it was.
Yeah, he was coaching at Blackpool at one time.
Yeah. That's where I met him. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, he coached Malawi, and I thought it was like right after you or right before you.
It would have probably been before me then.
And I think he did it. He did it as an interim thing for like, I don't know, 6 months or something.
Joe Kinnear was there as manager before me, a few years before me. But yes, I remember him telling me actually that he did. I don't know in what capacity he was coaching, but lovely guy, good coach as well.
Okay. Well, Rob, give us let everybody know about your background.
Not too dissimilar from Stephen, really, and a few travels in me career. Born in Zambia, funnily enough, with the African connection there, where my dad was over teaching and coaching. Grew up in England, all my family, football family, really. My brother-in-law, a well-renowned coach for UEFA and FIFA, and former England under-17 coach, John Peacock. My dad, my brother, sister, all UEFA licensed coaches here. Grew up playing, went through the ranks in England and county football and sort of associate schoolboy at Fulham Football Club before coming over to the States when I was about 21, I think, the first time, down in Omaha, Nebraska, and ended up building some academies with Fulham Football Club. That's where I first come across Mike and the world-class coaching crew. Since then, I've moved on into Canada. I was a technical director for the province of Manitoba, and then got involved with the national association. So I was under 17 assistant coach, was fortunate enough to go to 2 World Cups. We went 4 games unbeaten through 2 World Cups, which was a great achievement for Canada. That led to me becoming the under 18 and then under 20 national team coach. And then since then, I worked with every team from the 15s right the way through to the Olympic squad in various technical and coaching capacities. Before a couple of years ago, we started the Canadian Premier League, a Tier 1 FIFA league, and I'm the head coach and general manager for the last 2 years, building a club in my hometown of Winnipeg, Manitoba. So moved from the youth development and national side of it into the professional first team ranks again.
Now that Premier League in Canada, is that a full-time pros in that or part-time pros? Or
yeah, full-time. Let's say Tier 1 FIFA leagues, so the Canadian version of the MLS in all essence.
Okay.
18 in this upcoming season whenever it begins, and a league designed by Canadians for Canadians, really, to develop the young players that maybe won't get a chance in the MLS with the international rules, and benefit our national team going towards the 2026 World Cup when, alongside our neighbours to the south, we're hosting.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so listen, we've got 2 great guys here, tons of experience, tons of knowledge. If you have any questions, just post them down there, and if we get a chance, we'll get to them, and we'll see if we can answer some of those for you. So let's just start off. Let's go with you first, Steve. Let's just talk about, just give me your opinion, just an overall opinion on the possession style of play versus the more direct approach, and how you see that.
Okay. For me, possession is a means to an end. The end being shot on target or goal. I do like to be able to pass, but with me, it's always the end product. So unless they change the rules and give you a goal for every 100 passes you make, I don't really see the point of passing the ball around just for the sake of it. And I still believe that you can play good football, exciting football, without having to pass the ball so many times. Obviously, the object is to score. The longer you take with the ball, the more time the defenders have to get in place and set themselves. And therefore, I don't say from the goalkeeper it gets flicked on by the midfield player and the centre forward runs in and scores. I don't like that either. But there's, I think, at the moment in modern day football, we have taken the passing mantra to the extreme. Okay,
and what's your take on this, Rob?
For me, mate, I mean, I'm a bit of a purist. I grew up, as an Arsenal fan and endured some of the George Graham years where I think we were successful, but the style of play necessarily didn't get us that excited, other than when Ian Wright stuck the ball in the net. And yes, for sure, I think at the top levels of the game, end product, all levels, it's important, but it's absolutely vital when you're trying to win and lose games. But for me, it's still an entertainment industry. And I think the most successful teams, if I look at history and certainly the Wenger era under Arsenal and the possession style of play they built, I think for youth development and teaching the game when players don't have the capacity to develop more direct play, it's important. And I like to be entertained. I even say it with my own team and fans. And yes, teams can be exciting sometimes with a direct style of play. But I think of all the best teams, the Dutch teams, the Brazilian teams, the Arsenals now, the Manchester Cities, the Barcelonas in recent history, the most successful teams. And for me, the best style of play is built around a possession style of football.
Okay, well, I think what we need to do then is we need to kind of clarify things a little bit, because what I'm talking more of the possession style of play that Guardiola is probably the best known coach that he's known for, because I enjoyed watching Arsenal when Wenger was the coach, when they were when they were playing really well. They were just great to watch. They were just phenomenal to watch. But I don't think that they pass the ball around half as much as Guardiola's teams do. And okay, if I'm looking at the two, Wenger's teams used to pass the ball and they used to go forward quickly at most of their passes, forward passes, they'd just go forward and they'd run with it and they'd pass with it, and they were good team, good players. The possession style today seems to be just passing it 5 yards and 10 yards, and then that guy will pass it back to him, and then he'll pass it back to that guy, and then they may pass it back to a defender. And there's no pressure on them, and they'll still keep passing it around for no reason. So I see that as two different styles. What do you see it as?
Yeah,
Rob,
Rob?
Go on, Steve. I can see you itching there. Go on, son. Get in there.
No. But look, I kind of agree with part of what Rob said and a lot of what Mike said. There needs to be a purpose. I recently was watching some academy games in England. I mentioned no names. Two Premier League academy sides, and they were trying, both of them, not to lose. In fact, a couple of the players actually played in a League Cup game in the first team, and I was asked private who did I like, and I picked out two particular players, and the one player I said, he was a centre half. He could ping a ball 60 yards on a clothesline, superb. I mean, we only did that once in the game. And what I'm trying to say is that the mentality now in England is don't lose the ball, don't give it away, don't make a mistake. And yes, it's nice and safe to pass it sideways, but there needs to be a purpose. You're passing the ball from one side of the pitch to the other because you're looking for a weakness, okay? But the slower you do that, it's going to take you so much longer to find the weakness. And you mentioned about the best teams. Well, are Manchester City the best team this year? They're not, but they pass the ball more than any other team in the league. They've passed the ball more than any other team in the league. So, but it didn't get them. It didn't get the goal. The average pass for a goal in England is 6.7. The average pass for goals scored is 6.7. Let's say 7. Okay, Manchester City is 18, and they didn't win the league.
Well, okay, so good point. But Rob, let's just get back to what I was saying before, which was, do you see a difference between Wenger's Arsenal from 10 years ago to the possession now?
I do, and I think in many ways we'll agree on some of that, because I think because it revolutionised the game, that Barcelona team was something else and absolutely dominant. So people then took that to the extreme, and I've seen that in youth development and players, and I think you see young players now. When we talk about defenders, and Steve said about the ability to hit a long pass. So a long pass and accurately used and well executed by player is still possession, obviously, and purposeful possession, which I think is where we're getting into that discussion. Yes, there needs to be a purpose. But I also think, what we've had problems with, and I've seen in young development now, is it's gone the other extreme. When I grew up in England, we were very much a Graham Taylor, built around the Charles Hughes era of, at that stage, he used to argue it was 5 passes or left led to a goal. But it was built around percentages and direct play and knockdowns and opposition mistakes and all those kind of things. And for me, I don't think the DNA of English football, it's stagnated, and we regressed in world football for a long time now. And I think you see now with DNA and the development of the youth teams and trying to build more competent, technical-based players has advanced our game, and I would attribute that to the likes of Guardiola. But again, go back to your point, Mike. Yeah, the Wenger team, you still need to look forward, think forward, and play forward when it's on. And I think sometimes we lose that and we get caught up in possession statistics rather than the control of the game and the ball. And again, it comes down to that quality within the final third, which needs to be executed. But I would still argue I'll pay my money to go and see players who can control and move the ball and work in opposition. And it's the old surgeon's knife versus the hammer, as it were, and that ability to unpick a lock rather than just break down the doors that gets me my money out of my pocket.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I think all three of us agree that, you know, going back 30 years to when we were, I know you may be a little bit younger than Steve, you know, but we're kind of similar era. That the type of football that was played back in England with long balls up to big centre forwards and stuff like that, that is gone by the wayside, and rightly so. If that is your complete style, but from a spectator point of view, and I've talked to lots of coaches, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm in the minority. That watching the Bayern Munich, not the Bayern Munich, the Barcelona team that Guardiola had, to me it was boring. Now, it was boring for two reasons. One, because they were so good and so much better than anybody else. But two, they would just keep passing the ball all over the place. And I remember, and I've got a feeling it could have been Arsenal, because I'm pretty sure it was an English team. And it was like the quarterfinal or semi-final of the Champions League. And I'm watching the game, and let's assume it was Arsenal. It may not have been, but I've got a feeling it was Arsenal. And Arsenal were probably the second or third best team in Europe behind Barcelona at the time. And anyway, we watched the game, and it was like Barcelona had 72% of the possession. It was like watching, you know, attack against defense. And to me, it was boring. I just found it boring. There's got to be, okay, so here's another question then to ask.
Who won
let's talk about
that year,
possession, and you've mentioned possession with a purpose. From Sorry?
I said, who won the Champions League that year in that game?
So let's talk about possession. Was it Arsenal? Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, Arsenal didn't win it, that's for sure.
No, it was Barcelona. They caned us.
Yeah, but Barcelona. But Arsenal were like the second or third best team in Europe at the time, and Barcelona were just so much better. It was unbelievable. But anyway, my point is this: from a spectator point of view, for me, goal chances, action around the penalty area is really important. And if you're going to spend 90% of your time passing it in your own half or the defense, you know, the middle third before you even try something, to me, then I find that boring. What about you guys?
Okay, I don't know if you could call Barcelona boring. It's really it's nice to see the possession and the movement. In order to keep possession, you have to have that movement in and around the ball. And when they lose the ball, they get it back very quickly. I mean, they had this. I think it was the 6-second rule that you'd press for 7. I think it was 7 seconds. You'd press the hell out of the other team for 7 seconds, and you get the ball back, and then you start playing. It's a way of playing, but if you think about leading up to the goals, I mean, I think quick play in and around the box is always going to do it. I mean, it doesn't. You may have had 100 passes prior to that, but when you get in and around the box, it's going to be quick and it's going to be one touch, and some of the stuff is unbelievable. But I maintain that a passing game, of course, you need players who can do that. But I think you were talking about Manchester City and Barcelona. What do they collectively cost? 400, 500 million? Most coaches don't have that money to buy those kind of players who can play that way. I mean, in some cases, when teams are dominating possession, it's because they can't break the other team down, or they can't find a way past them, or they're just passing the ball around, waiting patiently to find a little gap to get in. Just depends how you look at it. I mean, you look at George Graham and the Arsenal of then, they won. If I'm a coach, an Arsenal fan, I don't care how I win. I want to win. Now, as we get older, we want to be a little bit more, okay, let's play the game the right way. What is the right way? The right way is the way that you win. If you're the coach, you're getting judged by results. You're not getting judged by, I've made 200 passes in this game. Yeah, but Manchester City came second. They passed 4 times more than any other team this season. They're not going to win the league. But you know what? Manchester City was second in goals from counter-attack. They are the second highest scoring team in England from counter-attack, the first being Liverpool. So, the good teams can play quick whenever they want, in my opinion, because they've got that quality.
So, Rob, what do you have to say?
Look, I think I agree in a lot of ways with what you're saying, Steve. I would say, though, if you had the money, so the criticism against Guardiola is he's got all the money in the world. But if you had all the money in the world, would you buy players that played football the way Guardiola did, or would you buy players that would be up and at it, direct footballers? And would you buy Peter Crouch or Lionel Messi?
I would buy Lionel Messi all day. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I don't think that Rob, that's the way to maybe argue it, because we all have a way of playing. But if we could afford a Messi or Ronaldo, or you would buy him because they have that quality. Why wouldn't you buy them?
I was only overgeneralising there, mate, to be honest. But he's an argument on Guardiola. He does have all the money, and he's put together some phenomenal teams. Look, the game is won and lost in both boxes. We know that. But maybe the teams, I mean, and Liverpool, for me, would you still say they're a possession team? What are their possession stats this year? I'm interested to know the breakdowns, because they're not a possession for the sake of keeping the ball, but they operate in the opposition's half. Their use of the fullbacks are phenomenal in to control the game, and that's where it comes back to me, is using possession to control tempo of play. Like Steve says, once you get around that box, you've got to be incisive, you've got to be quick, but maybe the positioning of your players, that movement wears down an opponent, or it tempts the opponent to come out and play you. Maybe that's how Manchester City eventually break down. Look at the number of late goals for Liverpool. The old Manchester United teams, they use the purpose of their possession is that they will continue to knock and hammer on that door that eventually breaks down. Would you agree?
100%. 100%. If you've got the ball, the other team can't score. And the first rule of football. But and I'm not knocking Pep Guardiola or the Manchester City team. I would like to see them play quicker, because they can, and they have those players to do that. Yes, it's difficult when you're playing Man City. They're probably playing against 10 defenders in most games, in a lot of games. And like I said, I mean, stats are stats, but the top 4 teams for counter-attack and scoring were Liverpool, Leicester, Man City, and Southampton, percentage-wise. And those goals were scored most of those goals were scored were 6-7 passes or less. So it's a combination. I completely understand where you're coming from, and I've been in situations where we have the ball, the other team is not coming out, they don't want to come out, so that kind of forces you to keep the ball, and that's another art in being able to keep the ball. It's then finding your moment and picking your hole and finding the dope on the pitch who's not doing the work. And
let me ask you this.
That's the soonest.
Okay, let me ask this question. Because Rob mentioned Liverpool, and in a couple of days we've got another Facebook Live going on where we're going to talk about, who's the best team, Manchester City or Liverpool, who plays the best style, all that kind of stuff. So I'm a big Liverpool fan of their style of play and Klopp more so than Guardiola. Now I'm a Guardiola fan. Sometimes 30 passes and they don't even go anywhere. It bores me sometimes. But let's ask you this question: if Liverpool had 70% of the play, let's say they had 70% of, how many goal chances do you think they would produce out of that? Now, compare that with Man City having 70% of the play. How many goal chances? Do you think Liverpool would have more goal chances, strikes at goal, goal opportunities with their 70%, or do you think Manchester City would have more goal chances with their 70%?
You first, Rob.
Who's playing up front? Is it Mane, Salah, and Firmino, or Origi and Jordan Henderson in a false nine? I think, I'm just looking at the stats here. Liverpool was still 58% of possession this year in Europe. They're still in the top 10 teams in Europe for possession.
Well, because they're a strong team and they're always better than the teams they're playing.
But so were Barcelona. So is that because of their quality on the ball and their use of the possession? I think again it comes down to use of possession, right? I think.
Well, and that's why I'm asking that question, because the question I'm trying to lead this question, because in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. In my opinion, Liverpool have 70% of the possession. They're going to be firing on goal pretty regularly. Manchester City have 70% of the possession. Half of that will be played around the halfway line, just passing and moving the ball, and just waiting for the perfect opportunity. So I would think that Liverpool would get far more opportunities on goal than Manchester City would, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I'm just looking at the stats, and I'm not a pure stats man, but Liverpool have created 18.4 chances per game this year. Manchester City 17.8. So 2 ways to skin a cat, but they're very, very close.
Yeah.
And look, that's why they're the top 2 teams. No getting away from it. And Liverpool, phenomenal this year, phenomenal. And look at their forward line. I think.
Would you describe Liverpool as a possession team like you would describe Manchester City as a possession team?
I think a different style of play, but I think they're both possession teams because they both have the majority of the ball in the majority of their matches.
I
would agree. Sorry, I would agree with Rob. I think they're both possession based but different style. If you put a gun to my head, who would you prefer? I would go with Liverpool. I think they're a little bit more direct than Manchester City, but that would be the only difference. I mean, like I said, it takes Manchester City 3 times longer to score than it does any other team, which is incredible, really.
Okay, but if it takes them 3 times longer to score, they must be 3 times better at scoring when they do try to score. Their stats are pretty close to Liverpool's on, goal chances.
0.6. Here's a question for you, lads, because we've all been in the development of players at various stages of our career. And for me, and even as a first-team professional coach, I believe every player has room for development within a winning mentality, culture, and to try and build a winning team. I think that's the important part. My take on that is Guardiola and the Klopp debate, and I think even the Wenger one. Why he was the best for me was he produced winning teams consistently, but also got players onto those higher levels, developed players. And I now look at the likes of Sterling. So I think is the possession game, my question to you guys, more conducive to the development of players alongside winning?
What development of pro players or kids?
I would say from any development, because I believe strongly that it continues all the way through in that philosophy.
Okay, you go for it, Steve. You're the guest.
Okay, thank you, the host. Look, I think for me, in 4 years in India, I gave 49 international debuts. Of those 49 players, I would say about 28, 29 of them were under 23. Maybe 10 of them were under 21. We played in the Asian Cup recently, or last year. 23 of the squad, well, we had a 23-man squad. 14 of those players were under 23 and 4 of them were under 21. Okay, so I love to develop players. And I think the more time they have with the ball, the better they're going to be, the more comfortable they will be. But you then got to put them in situations where they need to understand when, where, how, and why. And I'll give you an example, okay? I mentioned no names. I went to watch a game in the US. It was an under-19 game, and the philosophy was we're playing out of the back, okay? Now I'm like, okay. So I watched the game. This team that were deliberately playing very slowly out of the back, they were pressed very high. They lost possession quite a few times. And the technical director of this particular club was sitting next to me, and he had like a worried face. And I said to him, "Why are they doing that?" He says, "Well, it's our philosophy to play out the back. You know, we've watched teams in Europe, and we're going to play out the back." And I said, "You got to give, for me as a coach educator and a coach, which basically we teach kids to play football. We don't save lives. We teach kids to play football. Is give him the choice. Give him the tools to be able to decide, is it on?" But these kids were getting the ball. It wasn't on. They were being pressed. No, they have to learn. And for me, was completely wrong. Yeah, they do have to learn. But you've got to put them in situations where it's on. There has to be some pathway for success. Not just we're going to play out the back and we don't care what anybody else is doing. This is how we're going to do it. It doesn't matter if they're sitting on my toes. I just don't understand that.
I'm going to show you a good example of that in a second, but I just want to follow up with Rob's question from a youth perspective, because I coached kids from the age of 8 all the way up to 18, and I used to coach, good first touch and passing, 1 and 2 touch movements and passing and moving and stuff like that. That was, from a young age. But we also taught dribbling. We also taught, shooting and stuff like that. Now, here's the thing. I would tell them, pass the ball. I'd go crazy at them if they gave the ball away. It's like, don't give the ball away. Why are you giving the ball away? Just don't give it away. Pass it to somebody in your team. But I would also, because I used to play a lot from attacking from wide on my teams. We eventually make 2 or 3 passes. We'd get the ball to the wide player. And then the wide player may pass it. And they've got a lot of space. And so my question to them is, why are you passing it? We've worked these passes. We've done 4 or 5 passes. We've got you the ball. Now you've got to go and do your job. You go take that defender on. You go get that crossing. You go play that ball into the forward's feet. That's what we've done, is we've worked hard to get the ball to you so you can now do that. So I didn't want to overpass as well.
Okay,
so there was a purpose.
Okay, that's fine, Mike. But the most important thing is the pass is when you receive the ball. So before you receive the ball, you've got to have your head up and look around to see who's available. What are your options? Because in most cases, you're going to be under some sort of pressure at some point. So what I would be saying is that it's not just about the pass. It's about your body position, which way you're facing, and more importantly, what are the others doing to help you to make themselves available so that you can actually make that pass? And you know, there's so many details that go into to coaching football, and I think a lot of coaches don't pay attention to the details, even though uh, they know. I'm not saying they don't know. You've gone through your qualifications. Obviously, you know how to coach, but I think we forget sometimes to pay attention to the small details. You talked about the pass just then. I would have been talking about head up, position. Where's it going? Who's helping me? Is anybody communicating with me? And I think you have to add all of those kind of things. Hello?
Oh, I'm live. I'm back. Can everybody hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you. Just hang on a second.
I had the audience to myself there, mate. I was going to get in while I could.
Okay, so I try to show that, and obviously the internet just wasn't working well enough to show that was Socrates. Well, I'm trying to give an example there of what Stephen was talking about, where, and I see this happening pretty regularly, and it drives me nuts. Where
Well, Mike,
teams want to play out of the back. I understand that teams want to play out of the back, but
no, I
if
don't
the
understand.
competition is not letting you play out of the back, then surely you have to do something else. And that's the only example I could find. I know you two guys are Arsenal fans, but that's an example there of you cannot play out of the back in that situation when the other team is not allowing you to, and you're just giving goals away.
Well, that's what I was trying to say, and we've got coaches who are forcing our young players at academy level to do this because that's how the club wants them to play or the director wants them to play. And for me, it's just not right. We as coaches got to give them choice. And we hope when they go in that at the right time, at the right moment, they make the right choice because we've given them that choice. Okay,
Is,
they're
let me just
playing in England. In
let me
England,
just
they're
say
playing.
this. Is
Sorry.
let me just say this: is there a point to be made though with young kids that pretty much forcing may not be the right word, but asking them to do that regardless is going to make
You are forcing them.
it's going to make them, well, forcing them is making them better at doing that when the time matters when they get into the first team. Is
No.
there anything to be said for that? No.
I think there's something to be said in the development of a style of play and a philosophy to the game. But again, everything comes down to decision making. And going back, Steve, you have to put them in decision making situations realistic to the game.
Yes.
And they need to solve the problems. You know, mistake-based learning is in any walk of life. You learn from your mistakes, and if you learn them and correct them, then they're not mistakes; they're lessons learned, right? So, I think if you're building a club from the ground up, as we are here, then for sure we want the training sessions to be challenging, to be realistic, but we also want to develop players who may go on to the first team. And if we're one-trick ponies, let's say, and we never build out the back, then that's a problem. But then if we always try and it's not on to do so, or you can skip a player, or maybe you go into a back three and you drop your holding midfielder on, and now your fullbacks are dropping low, and you've got players that are comfortable, centre backs who can step up into those half spaces, or fullbacks who can invert. That's more important, I think, is them working out those overloads and creation of scenarios to move the ball in a forward direction to hurt the opposition, rather than let's just do it because for the sake of it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. You've got to put the players, like we said before, you've got to put them in situations in practice where they have success. And then you've got to take it up a notch, and then you've got to put them in situations where they're under real pressure. And that is the only way they're going to learn. But they are going to make the right choice in those decisions. So I agree with what you said completely.
Okay. So, let's talk about, because some of the people asking questions about, most of them are youth coaches. So let's take 10, 12, 14-year-olds. As far as teaching possession, do you think that's something good that we should be instilling into them? Do you think we should be instilling more individual skills like dribbling and fakes and moves? Because I seem to remember, and I don't know how accurate this was, but when Thierry Henry and all those good French players came out, I kind of heard that one of the things they did is that they were purely on 1v1 individual stuff when they were young, until they were like 14 years old or something. And then they started teaching them the game. I don't know if that's accurate, but what do you think about age-wise as far as teaching, instilling possession?
I'd say without technique, there's no tactics. And I think you look at the history of those French players and that era of Clairefontaine and their production line. Look, without the basics, before you even start getting into 12s and 13s of 11-a-side game and the full game, as it were, which is a game designed by adults for adults, right, with a level of complexity in that. It's fundamental that they get the techniques down. And look, if you can't pass a ball 10 yards, you probably can't pass a ball 30 or 40 yards. So it's a staircase approach to development. That's why we have long-term player development models and curriculums that build on that. But alongside that, look, every possession team has a dribbler, as a shooter, as someone who can head the ball. There's all aspects of the game that need to be developed, and the best teams, the best players have the ability to do things on and off the ball.
Couldn't agree with you more. I would just add that, and this is to all the coaches out there who are coaching youth players, If you worried more about the development of the players over winning the game, maybe you would produce better players. I think it really is unbelievable, and I've been all over the world seeing under 12s and under 13 championships, and we're going to win this and we're going to win that, and you don't play all the players, you don't give them all the time. There is so many things that the young players can learn. I was speaking to some people, some youth coaches in recently on a FIFA course. So how many of you, and Rob, you'll appreciate this, how many of you can demonstrate the 6 turns that there are in football? There's only 6. The Brazilians made a 7th, but where you pirouette on the top of a ball, but that doesn't count. There are 6 ways to turn with the football. Can you demonstrate them? These are coaches now. Okay, well, name them and then go out and demonstrate them. And, I was absolutely horrified that most of them could not do all 6 turns. Now, if you are not teaching young players how to do the basics, where do you think they're going to get it from? YouTube? Are they going to be taken by a pro team? Maybe yes, maybe no. I'm talking there are young professional players who don't know how to do the 6 turns. Because invariably when you're teaching the turns, the players, maybe they like 2, maybe 3 of them. The step over, or let's talk about the Cruyff turn, Johan Cruyff. Everybody knew he was going to do that turn, but could you stop him? No, because you didn't know when, how, where, and there's so much into it. I think the coaches, the younger coaches these days, think by winning the under 12 Canadian league that they're going to be the under 16 national youth coach. It doesn't work like that. Focus on the kids enjoying the game. Focus on the detail. The detail. It's all about the detail. Sorry, I'm done.
Hey, I'd agree. It's got to be player-centered, and I'm sure all of the people out there are counting the 6. So I'm going drag back, inside hook, outside hook, back heel, Cruyff, step over.
Correct.
All right, good stuff. I can demonstrate them all too. But so here's a question I'll pose them. We're all in agreement on all those points. I think it's about the details, development over winning, because winning will come with development of players in the right way. Is the direct game built in the youth more about short-term success and a desire for coaches to get the ball forward quicker, to get into those advanced action areas to score, rather than a development approach where there's more passing, receiving, controlling turns, receiving half turned? Would you say, and maybe all the way up to the senior level, that direct play will bring you short-term success, but possibly long-term failure? Is my question.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I've coached in United States for 20 plus years. I've coached 8-year-old kids all the way up to 18-year-old kids. I know the system thoroughly, and you've coached here, Rob. You know the system. You've got a mixture. You've actually got a mixture. You've got coaches who who can develop players and do a great job of developing players. And there's some pretty good players come out of the system. The system is not really conducive to developing players because it is a system that kind of restricts really exceptional players from moving on to the next level. You coached at a club in Omaha. You know what the club situation is. There's a club within a city, and there may be, there's another youth club. There may be 2 or 3 youth clubs within that city that have got teams in the youth ages. Now, on one hand, if you are successful, then you're going to attract better talent to your club. Better kids, going to want to come to your club. So success has to be part of it. If you are developing good players and you're not being successful at the same time, then those good players will leave you. They'll go to the other rival club, and you're out of business, and you can't earn any money, and you don't have a soccer club anymore. So
it depends what you mean.
In the United States, forces coaches to have some kind of success along with their development. Otherwise, they're not in business. They're out of business. They're done. It doesn't have that system like in the UK, for example. If you're coaching at a youth club and you develop a really good player, and at 12 years old he gets to go to join the Manchester United Youth Academy, that is great for you. You know, that's a feather in your cap. You've developed a player and he's moved on to the next level.
That is,
we don't have that situation here.
Are you saying that if I was, I don't know, what's the nearest team to you? Columbus Crew? In Omaha? No?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, they're close. Kansas City.
Yeah, all right. So if I was to say to you that over a 10-year period, I put 12 players into Kansas City or to Columbus Crew first team, that's not successful. If you are putting winning, but because in the States it's pay to play.
No, but you wouldn't get that situation. Wouldn't happen. In the example that I'm giving, Stephen, that situation wouldn't happen, because if you were developing good players and you were having success at the same time, then you would keep those players and then you would be able to pass them on to the Kansas City professional team. But the point that I was making is that you have coaches who are really good at developing players, and they'll develop players. They can pass, they can control the ball, they can do all kinds of stuff. But if their teams are not successful, then at 12 years old, that kid's going to leave and go to the club across the city. And then he's out of business because no good players want to go to him. So it's a bad situation here in the United States. It doesn't work like it's not as black and white as you're making it.
No, I'm not making it black and white. But if it's my academy, okay, and I'm making my money from this, there's a level, isn't there? There's a time where kids are looking like they got it, and I think around 14 or 15, you kind of see if this player is going to be a player. Okay, I don't see why you can't have both. My academy, we're not interested in winning. I'm interested in developing players. I don't care if I win the under 12 league or under 13 league. I don't care. Maybe I will have 3,000 or 4,000 kids if I win the league every year. And we're putting winning above development. My job as a youth coach, if you work for me, develop the player. I don't care if you win the league. I care if you put 3, 4, 5 players into the under 15s, into the under 17s, or into the senior team.
I don't think you're not seeing that. You don't understand. I don't know if you don't understand. I'm not explaining.
I lived in the States for 10 years. Okay, I know exactly what's going on there. Okay, the problem is the problem is it's all about winning, not about development. That's the short and the end of it.
No, that's not true,
Mike.
Okay. That's not true. Winning is a big part of it, but there are tons of coaches over here that are really good at developing players. But you have to balance the fine line. You've got a fine line here where you've got to develop players while also having a reasonable amount of success. Otherwise, those players will leave and go to the rival across the city.
I think
it's a fine line.
I think what the argument comes down to, isn't it, is what is the definition of success? And as youth coaches, all of us and people who've been in development, if your players, if you're at a very young age, I would argue in the minis right the way through to 12, 13, 14, it's retention of players. Are they enjoying the game? How many players want to play soccer the next year? That's the ultimate success for a youth coach at the youngest ages. But where the real point comes in is it's the educational process of parents. Because the system, as Mike says, and Steve, you'll agree, is not set up that success is the development of players. Yes, for certain individuals, and then they might move on. But ultimately, people look at that state, provincial championship winning, national championship, wins and losses, that statistical. It's learned behavior by adults that teach the kids that success is winning. And for us, we would equate the development of players and moving them on. For me, it was the same as the national team, Steve. I've got, 16 players who come through our system, and I've had the privilege to work with and hopefully help develop, go on and play in the Gold Cup last summer for Canada. And they got right through to the, quarterfinals, done exceptionally well. For me, that's the ultimate success as a youth development coach, to see players go on to reach the pinnacle of the game. But for a parent in the Midwest, they're going to look at, is my kid going to get more opportunities for a university if they go to the state tournament, etc., because that team's winning. They might only be a byproduct or a player. They might use a quality licensed development first coach and move on from that to go to a winning team, because that's what they deem or is labeled as success. And that's why we have a problem in North America in the development of our game.
Well, that's it. I mean, if you could tell me 3 or 4 players, top players, American players, not many.
No, Pulisic.
Well, yeah,
now, wouldn't he?
You've got a different. It's hard to compare, because soccer here is not it's not built into the culture like it is in other countries. So it's trying to compare that is like apples to oranges, Steve. It's just, I've got, when I was a kid, and I've got nephews and nieces and stuff back home who, they're locked in, and all they're doing is playing soccer in their backyard, and I've got videos of them playing soccer in their backyard. Here, the only soccer they see is when they go to soccer training, most of the time. They'll watch a bit on TV.
Look, you could have said what you just said maybe 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. There are more kids playing soccer in the United States than any other country in the world, bar none. The talent in the United States, the talent.
90%. But Steve, 90% of those kids, 90% of those kids, the only time they kick a soccer ball is when they go to soccer training.
Okay. We don't go in. But you don't see kids playing in the park in England anywhere anymore. It's changed. You don't see kids going to the park playing football in England. They're all with clubs.
Well, I think they still do it a lot more than they do here. The thing is, 90% of the kids in the US, the only time they kick a soccer ball is at soccer training, and 90% of them will never watch more than, a one game on TV or half a game on TV in the season. And so they don't have the soccer smarts that our kids have back in the soccer playing countries like Italy and Spain and the UK. So you're trying to compare, and it's hard to compare.
No, I'm not trying to compare them. You're trying to compare them. What I'm saying is that we don't have a soccer culture in the US. It's old news. You can't say that anymore. You've been to World Cups. You've got 22 teams now in the MLS, or 30 teams in the MLS. The game is at its height in the US. There's so much talent now. But I go back to the coach development. If you're concentrating on winning, you're not going to produce players, because the players have different levels of learning. They don't all come out at the same time. I mean, Jamie Vardy was an example. Ian Wright was another example, where they didn't get into the professional game until they're 21. But if the coaching is right, it doesn't matter. Okay, you can say it's important for us to win so that we get more kids in, and it's a business. Yes, I get that. But there needs to be... Go ahead.
Well, firstly, I'll repeat the point that I said. There are some tons and tons of good coaches in the US who do a good job of developing players, and they develop, players. Obviously, you've got levels of, well, they're not developing world-class players, but they're developing players that can play pretty good. But let's just flip this and look at it the other way around. I don't know. They may have one in Cyprus. I'm pretty sure they've got one in Greece, and they've got them in England. They've got professional basketball leagues in England. Why are they not producing basketball players that can play in the NBA that are world class? Because it's a different basketball is not ingrained in the culture in the UK. Yeah, they can still play a professional league and they can still do it and people will still watch it, but it's just not the same. As much as you like to think it is, it's not the same. It's just not.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, that one actually diverted off from possession and direct play to youth development. We should come back and do another one on youth development because that was getting pretty heated on that one. But I think we're about done, guys, because we're over an hour and people got to watch this and we don't want to drag them on too long. So let's just end it there. Just want to thank you both, Rob and Stephen, for participating, and hopefully we'll do it again because I think people are going to be locked up. We're going to be locked up for quite a while yet. I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. So I'll be in touch, and hopefully we'll find another topic and we'll get talking about something different. But I appreciate you being on there. I'm sure everybody's enjoyed the thing. We're going to post this on our YouTube channel, and we'll post it in our members area. So I'll send you guys the links for that so that you can pass it on to your contacts and stuff so that they can have a look at it. But any last comments that we want to put in there?
I would just like to say thanks.
No?
I'd just like to say thanks to you guys. Thanks for everybody joining in. My pleasure to chat to you. We could talk soccer all day. That's the beauty of the game, and a game of opinions. But I'd also like to just say thanks to everybody who's out there working and didn't do this because they're out there working on the front lines and keeping us safe during this time. So thanks very much, guys. And you too, stay safe. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, well, thanks, Rob.
Mike, thanks for inviting me. I really enjoyed it. Rob, it's great to speak with you and all things football. And I would like to reiterate what Rob said. The people, the doctors, the nurses, the people that are keeping us safe and healthy. Thank you, and see you at the far post.
All right, guys, we'll talk again. Thanks.
Shorter pass, near post.